Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. And Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101.
I'm Jeff White with Ticketfly, and we're on Promoter 101.
Happy episode 167 of the Promoter 101 podcast. Please meet my dearest friend, W. Lucas Pierce.
Dan, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be back here. Looking forward to an amazing episode of Promoter 101. We've got a featured interview with Keith Levy, who's booking Tyler Childers, Shakey Graves, Robert Earl Keen, Caamp, the Milk Carton Kids, Jade Bird, Brent Cobb, Langhorne Slim. So, yeah, we're going to have a few things to talk about today, Dan.
A few things. Have I mentioned I really like Keith Levy? Good guy. Good guy, Keith Levy. Plus, we got 3 questions with Gray Matter Studios. Eric Elwell.
Episode 167, Promoter 101, starts right now.
Hi, I'm Chuck Morris. I'm CEO of AEG Presents, Rocky Mountain Region and Northwest Regions of America. And I'm on Promoter 101.
Have you missed any of the past Promoter 101 episodes? Well, I'm going to hook you up. You can go to promoter101.net and search for episode 98. Luke is going to tell you what's so special about episode 98. And oh my God, friends, this one was the only one we will ever have done from a major league ballpark. Just saying.
You really enjoyed this one, didn't you, Dan? Episode 98 included a sit-down with you and Live Nation Chief Operating Officer of the U.S. Concert Division, Mark Campana, and Pearl Jam's fan club, that's the 10 Club, Karen Leora, recording live from the home of the world-famous Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field, Dan.
I kind of nerded out to this one, I will admit. Between Mark Campana, Pearl Jam, 10 Club, and my hometown of Chicago, Illinois, hanging out at Wrigley Field, I don't know if it gets any better than that. But just for good measure, Ticketmaster's David Marcus joins us to actually break down some of the technology 10 Club featured in that podcast and explains the services that Ticketmaster been able to roll out to help Pearl Jam with their fan experience.
Plus, Dan, we had the Tobin Center's Aaron Zimmerman turning the tables on you. Very good sit-down. You should check it out.
Hey, if you've got a free moment, please drop us a review and tell some people that there's this podcast with these 2 kids that, you know, probably aren't kids anymore, but still think of ourselves as 13-year-olds. Anyway, we have this podcast thing, and, you know, you should listen to them because they talk a lot of shit, but they make my flight go really fast.
You should check it out, Dan.
I can't wait to listen myself.
This is Dave Shapiro,
Mike Mills,
Sam Hunt,
Joey Scolari,
Rich Best,
Tim Sweetwood,
Andy Levitt,
Sarah Beasley,
Jared Paul,
Bobby Clay,
John Phillips,
Greg Pomley,
Harvey Cohen,
Rich Schaefer.
This is Eric Mayers, and I am live
on Promoter 101.
We're kicking off episode 167 with some 3 questions. We're going to be joined right now from Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, with Gray Matter Studios, Eric Elwell.
Eric Elwell, welcome to the podcast, my friend. You ready to play our game?
Hey, man, how are you? Question 1. As productions get more complicated with big video walls and hundreds of moving lights, how is that impacting the promoter community? And not just the big boys, Live Nation and AEG, but the community in general. What's going on out there?
No, I think you're talking about one of the bigger days in production where people are ready for this. You've got so many professionals on the road now, and everybody is just ready for what's coming. Well-written writers requesting the correct number of hands. I mean, sure, there's a couple of uneducated people out there that are learning their ways, and you're going to have that happen as people get their education. But for the most part, you're seeing a day where production is king, and people are just ready for this. Now, the first couple of days of a tour are chaos no matter who you are. It doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are, where you're trying to figure out that pack on the back of the semi, or you're trying to get into a back of a trailer, or you're trying to figure out which semi needs to dump first and which one needs to be on the road first to get to the gig. Those are the questions that have to happen over days while you're figuring it out. You have rehearsal days and you have your first couple shows on the road. And for the most part, I think you're seeing a day of professionalism unparalleled to anything else as far as the production world goes. And those big video screens, they just pop together. The crews know how to do them locally because everybody's got them now. Those moving lights come right off the trucks, usually right on the truss, ready to just fly up. So, yeah, no, I think you're seeing a day of amazing production.
Great, great. Question number 2. What do you see as far as promoters moving into esports and e-gaming? Do you think that regional promoters are going to get in the game? Where's their entry point? And does Live Nation or AEG step up to the plate and become a formidable competitor in that space?
Yeah, I think you're going to see this be more of a national promoter space. You're talking about esports, and a lot of the video game companies are already there. So with that in mind, I think you're talking about national promoters when they do get involved, and you're going to see more tours. You're going to see more arenas. I think this is going to go to the amphitheaters and maybe even the stadiums when this gets bigger. But we've far from seen our last moment with this. And I think you're going to see the networks get involved in the same way that they have with the X Games.
Right.
Because it's just cool.
Yeah.
The space is huge. It's going to continue to grow. I don't think there's going to be a ton of opportunities for the buy one date kind of thing, especially because the video game companies are so involved. It's such a sponsorship heavy internal event. But I think there is a bigger moving piece that has a global impact. So I do think you're going to see the national promotion companies getting involved, and you're going to see this continue to grow, just like you would with monster trucks or some of the food shows. And, it's just an incredible thing. I mean, we're seeing the same thing on a smaller level with the podcast right now, where they're blowing through theater dates, sometimes 2 in a day. It's just, the stuff is getting big and big and bigger. Look at Joe Rogan blowing out arenas.
Right.
You're just going to see that stuff continue to blow the fuck up.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Third question. Name 3 trends that you think are going to have the greatest impact on the concert industry in the next 12 to 24 months.
3 trends. Well, I think esports, you were onto something with that. I think we're going to continue to see the podcast space grow as far as live events. And I think comedy is going to circle back in a big way this year. We've continued to see it grow and grow and grow. We're seeing comics like Tom Segura blow through 5 in Seattle this week, 2 in Portland. It's like they're just rolling through monster number of dates, and he's not the only one. This is a great space. You're also seeing speakers do numbers we've never seen before. God bless the political system. We're seeing Bill and Hillary do big spaces. We're seeing Michelle Obama have an unparalleled success in the arenas as a book tour.
Right.
Who the fuck has ever tried to do that before? God bless her.
Yeah.
I think Oprah's doing Canada. This is going to be a big space. We're going to see comics, speakers, podcasts. This is all growing into a much bigger space. And I think you'll see the politic thing calm down a little bit because all of those paid shows are going to go away as all of the politicians and all of the politically fueled shows are going to be attached to rallies to support the candidates coming into the next election as we enter into that next cycle.
That's it, man. The internet has changed us all to life learners, and we can't get enough of interesting people and interesting information.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Eric. Thank you so much for taking time and talking to us on Promoter 101.
Thanks, guys.
So great that Eric was able to join us for 3 questions. Love playing 3 questions, Luke.
Hi, it's Paula Palazzo from Live Nation Concerts Canada on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101 Flashbacks.
Episode 24.
Lee Anderson.
What's the one thing that talent buyers do that annoys you the most?
I hate when they just want an artist because they know the name, but they haven't looked at it or brought a creative idea to the table. They just want the show because they should have the show because they wear the name. It's like, what's your plan for the show to make it different? What's the growth for you? I don't want to hear why you want this show in the 500 cap
Where's
club.
the added value?
I want to hear how you're going to take that 500 cap show and turn it into 3,000 tickets and what that timeline looks like and what the strategy is for the market and how you're going to do something a little bit different.
This is Marcia Vlasic, president of AGI Talent Agency on Promoter 101.
Tweets of the week.
Buckle up, kids. Time for some tweets of the week. Start here. Dear every touring act in the world, you don't all have to be on the road this November.
Feel free to move around the calendar a little bit. We got a full year to work with.
It takes a special kind of ass to cold call you. Only when you return their call, they ask you to pitch them.
This one is always fun. Get your pitch together, please.
People are amazing at knowing what is not their job. Hashtag, that's not my job.
Always a great way to piss off the person you're talking to. Lend a hand, point people in the right direction, and maybe offer to help a little bit. This is a service business, Luke. People like when you help.
It is indeed, Dan. And that'll do it for Tweets of the Week. Make sure you keep up with the conversation and all the musings of Dan Steinberg. He's on Twitter at The Jew.
Larry Magid Entertainment Group, and I'm on Promoter 101.
In our featured interview this week, we're going to take focus on Paradigm's Keith Levy. Keith is a music agent here in town, booking the amazing roster of Paradigm artists from Tyler Childers to Robert Earl King to the Milk Carton Kids, Brent Cobb, Langhorne Slim, and so many more. We are so pleased to have him here on this podcast. Welcome, Keith Levy.
Hi there, radio listeners. Welcome to P101. It's 6:15 in the morning. The drive looks good, and we've got overcast in the city. But hey, let's focus our attention on Mr. Keith Levy and his magical ears that have discovered some amazing acts as of late.
Wow. Flattering.
That just happened.
Okay.
You're having what most agents in the industry would die for. The moment that you're having right now that's been kind of going on for the last 3 years. Like Shakey Graves really kind of took off, and they've really been sustaining, which is amazing because a lot of acts have that moment. And
we're trying hard.
When Pitchfork decides a band is cool, usually there's an arc of like a year and a half where you get to stay that cool, but they've built off of that and stayed that cool and cooler, and they continue to release good content.
Lucky for us, Pitchfork never really decided Shakey Graves was cool, which might be a strength.
Really?
I mean, maybe. Who knows? We never got the 10.0 or the 0.0 rating, so... But yeah, he's had a great run. There's no question about it.
It's amazingly cool. The festival looks continue to happen, and you guys are selling out ballrooms and better. And when you do support, it's amazing things. And a couple headline of amphitheater setups around the country, like Red Rocks now, right?
Red Rocks for the second year in a row headlining. That's right. This will be his 4th summer playing the venue. But yeah, we put a couple of great packages together this summer. We're doing the West Coast with Lord Huron. So that's late July into August. And then we kind of head right into like a month-long tour with Dr. Dog. So Lord Huron's like Hollywood Bowl, Greek Berkeley, Marymore, 2 Edgefields. Most of that's sold out. I mean, Hollywood Bowl is getting there, not sold out yet. It's a lot of tickets. And then we head right into Red Rocks with Dr. Dog, and we're doing like Surly Brewing in Minneapolis, Anthem, Rockland Hills in Boston, FKA, Blue Hills, some Texas shows, Whitewater Amphitheater, etc. So one of my big goals with Shakey this year was really to prove that he can live outdoors and headline in those kind of bigger situations.
So you guys are actively killing it on the road. Everything's almost sold out. Oh my God.
Not
Hollywood Bowl's not gone yet, but it's like 20,000 tickets. I imagine when you and Eric probably cut that deal, you weren't necessarily thinking it had to sell out to make that deal work.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, he's finally in the place. I've been working with Shakey for 6 years. The strategy was always underplay. Let's sell every ticket. And we finally got to the point where we were looking at each other, me and Bodie Johnson, the manager, and decided let's play the biggest rooms we can play and maybe not sell every ticket this time, but let's establish him as an outdoor headliner, which affects the festival fee and obviously the perception, but also, you're finally in a place where every fan in Boston or DC or Minneapolis or Denver can come see the show.
And you're taking a real risk. You're saying, let's go big.
Yeah. It's a calculated risk, obviously, and we were certainly very methodical about it. I mean, this is a 6-year build, essentially, right? So it's like, this is the 3rd proper album that I've worked on with Shakey, and it was really the 2nd album, which was 2014, and The War Came, that kind of like broke him. Top 5 single at AAA with Dearly Departed, and that was, for really 2 years, 95% of our shows sold out well in advance. So, we're 6 years in, and we've had sort of the luxury and hopefully the foresight to be methodical and strategic about, okay, when do we go bigger? Or when do we get to a place where we say, let's go as big as we can go, or, let's be in these amphitheaters. And we decided that was this summer.
Clearly it's working. If Shakey Graves was the only act on your roster, you would still be an agent people were talking about, but
he was for a minute.
You're kind of having a moment right now. I mean, Willie Watson is incredible.
Thank you.
Milk Carton Kids, who I think is the first act you and me interacted with. I think they're amazing. The album they wrote originally was possibly the best debut freshman album of any act in the genre.
Wow.
It's a great album. You can listen to that album for days.
It's a great band. It's a very unique act. What a lot of people don't know about that act, especially if you haven't seen them, is how funny they are, which you know because you've seen them. But the show is like as much comedy as it is music. I think they have this ability to blow people away with really just their chemistry. I mean, just the two of them, like even if you're just sitting having dinner with Joey and Kenneth, they are the people that you see on stage. So they're like brothers who love each other more than anybody in the world, but will bicker and be at each other's throat and then hug and kiss and make up. But they're absolutely hysterical. And it's just real. They don't script out their shows. It's mostly improvised. They have some like key bits that they do, but they're never the same. And look, those guys have had a great run too. That was really, when I got to Paradigm, that was one of the first acts that Jonathan Levine said, I want you to work on this with me. So, I got there beginning of 2015. And I brought Shakey and Willie Watson with me. Those were the only two acts that I brought with me from New Frontier. And it was like, I don't know, week one. And Jonathan was like, I want you to work on these acts with me.
So when
and
JL taps you to work on an act, that's kind of high praise. There's like, you really can't get much higher praise in that office.
Yes, sir. It was, he says jump, I say how high. Let's go,
It's not exactly a hard thing. It's like, okay, sure.
No, it's an incredible thing. Yeah.
You know what I love most about that is my daughter recently pointed out to me that she didn't understand the name. She didn't get it. I haven't been in high school for a long time and seen a carton of milk, but they don't do that anymore where they put the missing kids on the
That's
milk
a
carton.
good point. Yeah. They do have a story about where that name came from. I'm not remembering it right now, but something about how they found each other.
All right. So Brent Cobb, dude, having a moment. If you haven't heard him yet, like stop what you're doing, stop the podcast, go to Spotify and search. Because holy shit, Brent Cobb is amazing. And you would think that he's produced by his brother or cousin, but it's just the same last name, right?
No, it's his second cousin.
Are they related?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're second cousins.
That's his in, huh?
That is his in with Dave Cobb. Maybe you've heard of him. What's funny is they had never met each other their whole lives, and they met when Brent was like 18, 19 years old at a family funeral, I think, for like a distant aunt or something. And Brent, I think, kind of had a little bit of an attitude, I think, and was like trying to make a go at having a music career. And he just walked right up to Dave and said, hey, man, I hear you produce records. You should produce my record, And I don't think Dave really took him seriously. And Brent's dad or somebody gave Dave like an early demo of Brent's. And, Brent's been a carnival writer for Frank Liddell here in town for 10 plus years, which is how I found out about him right when I moved back to town, which was like 2011. And he had this little demo of 5 or 6 songs. Digging Holes was on there, which is on his Electro Low Country Sound debut. And I think Dave, he flew back to LA where he was living at the time, and it took months, but he finally put the CD in his CD player. And it was like, wow, my little cousin's pretty good. And I've now seen Dave do a listening party for Brent or introduce him various places, and he calls him his little bitch ass cousin.
Lovingly.
Yeah, lovingly, right. Because of his, sort of you should check me out kind of attitude. But yeah, they didn't know each other their whole lives, and they finally connected. And I think when Dave finally had the creative capital to have his own label and really call some shots. And, Greg Nadell kind of gave him the keys to the car with Low Country Sound. And it was kind of like, whatever you're working with, we want first right of refusal. That's kind of the deal, right? So if the artist isn't already on a label. So they've made 2 awesome records together, Shine on Rainy Day, and then the recent one, which came out about a year ago, Providence Canyon. And yeah, look, he's been out with Stapleton for 3 summers in a row. I mean, those are enormous gifts.
I want to say I just saw him open for Tedeschi Trucks here at the Ryman. Is that?
Yeah, Tedeschi Trucks at the Ryman, which was, of course,
hard crowd to open for because the fans just don't want to see anything but TTB. And he won him over immediately.
So that was a big goal for me, was sort of get Brent more in this jam lane and get him in front of audiences that love Tedeschi Trucks or the Wood Brothers, for example.
Yeah, very soulful.
Very soulful. So I hope we can do more.
So if that weren't enough, you've been blessed with Tyler Childers, which
the gig gods have blessed him upon me.
I think this is the beginning of what's going to be a very long career. But
I mean, this is a guy who's now selling 5,000 to 10,000 tickets in a lot of markets, and literally every show this year selling out. He's never been on TV. There's 0 terrestrial radio play. The moment is ahead of him. It's not behind him. So that's really, really exciting. Just this completely organic groundswell of people that are voracious for his music and his shows. So lucky us.
You do have a typo problem, though, on your roster.
What's that?
Caamp can't spell their name.
I like how they spell their name. It's more easily Googleable. You can't just be named Caamp, C-A-M-P, right? Because then it's like, how do you find the band online?
Like how I did that.
Yeah, nice transition.
They're having a pretty good moment right now, too. That's really seeming like it's starting to bubble.
Camp's been a really fun one. Those guys are doing great. I work on them with Mike Greisch in our New York office, and it's an awesome team. They're managed by Mick Management. Mom and Pop just came on board.
Who at Mick?
Adam Sensenbrenner. And he's sort of the youngest manager there that's not only a day-to-day. They brought him in to work on several projects, and he was managing Caamp on the side. which of course Michael and Jonathan knew about. And then they started getting label inquiries, Michael and Jonathan. And they went to Adam. They said, why isn't Caamp on our roster? And, Mick's like very super selective about their roster, which I think is one of the best things about that company. Adam was just kind of like, well, I was kind of waiting for you guys to ask me when they would be on the roster. So they brought him in officially. And yeah, Camp's one of these bands that, again, is growing organically on Spotify, on YouTube. This is a band with like 1.7 to 2 million monthly Spotify listeners at any given time that has yet to have a release on a label. Everything's been 100% completely self-released. And I don't mean like, 30 Tigers or AWOL. I mean, self-released. And again, they're moments ahead of them. It's not behind them. No TV, no radio. So these are the kind of bands that I look for and that I love. And these are the kind of bands that I listen to because frankly, I don't listen to the radio very much.
The question is, because the industry would say you've got ears.
Well, thank you.
You've been guessing right pretty good. Your track record's in front of you, right?
If I'm known for nothing else, I'll take that I have ears.
How are you managing your time? I mean, Shakey's working, Willie's working, Milk Carton Kids, Caamp is certainly working, Brent's certainly working, like Tyler's definitely working. Like, your bands are on the road.
Everybody's working. Yeah, all my bands are working.
How are you managing your day?
That's a common theme with my bands.
That's got to be insane.
I think it's hard for any of us in this industry, right? Because by the nature of our job, this has to be a high volume job. We have to book a lot of shows in a year.
Any idea how many shows you're going to book this year?
I'm generally around 700 to 750 shows in a year, which is a lot of shows, right? But the reality is we have to book a lot of shows to make money. A lot of these bands need to play a lot of shows to make money. Most importantly, we're finding audience in a lot of places around North America, but also around the world now. And while these bands are young and developing, you want to get them to as many places as possible and sort of get in when the moment's happening and build it, right? Get in front of people because you can't just rely on the internet to sustain a career. And certainly, 20, 30 years down the line, there will be some new pipeline as to how kids find music. Who knows what it'll be. But it's hard. It's a high volume business. I mean, we all work all the time, and I'm trying to have a life and a family too. So it's like, I don't know. I don't have the answers.
You got some of them. It's a work in progress,
yeah,
right?
It is a work in progress, yeah.
You're at one of the coolest incubators in the industry. You guys and William Morris probably do it the coolest. The interacting, the team co-booking acts, the way that they set up those agencies to really stimulate each other and share ideas, particularly in the Nashville office here. JL has really built something cool here. I don't know if there's a cooler space like in Nashville for an agency to have, but the people in that hallway, that's a cool group of people to be able to trade ideas with, and it keeps growing and it's super awesome. I mean, I think William Morris has got a pretty cool hallway over there in Nashville too, but
I've never been in that hallway.
Pretty cool. But it's just I think there's really something special. I mean, the city itself, all the agencies got something really neat going on. That's a fun space to be in. I love visiting because there's so many friends right there in that corridor. And it's just what's going on in JL's office and what's going on in Joe's office and what's going on in your office and Michael's office and Lenore's office. I can go on for half an hour.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome.
No, 100%. I mean, look at this team that JL has put together. I've been there for 4.5 years. And just in that amount of time, it's been incredible to just kind of watch this thing build and grow and Lenore come over, which when that news broke, it was like, this is going to be so much fun. That was my first thought. And then Jackie Nalpamp moving to town and Kylie Moseman and, Atamian getting there shortly after I started in the Paradigm Nashville office. And now Nate Riches and Mike Betterton and Max Braun moves here from New York, who's, an incredible personality with incredible tastes and kind of keeps us all fresh and relevant in terms of his musical tastes. And Jeffrey Hassan and Clint Wiley and Andrea Ambrosia and Jenny Deloche. It's a hell of a group. I'm lucky to be a part of it. What's always top of mind for us is serving the artist first and certainly not trying to serve ourselves or the bottom line. And, I think Paradigm's unique in that way culturally because I think top down, whether it's Marty Diamond or Matt Galley or Corey Christopher or Dan Weiner or JL or Jackie, everybody cares about music. This is a company made up of music fans. And I've heard Marty say it a number of times, Ed Sheeran played clubs, Coldplay played clubs, Janelle Monáe played clubs, and it's we've been trained to build it one step at a time from the ground up and not skip steps. And I think particularly our Nashville office with JL at the helm, coming from this Monterey Peninsula world and booking sort of his stable of acts that, he's known for. The Dead and Further and Weir and Lesh and the Black Crowes and the Black Eyed Peas when they were the biggest band in the world. All of this stuff, even the Black Eyed Peas, I think, early in their career was built on the road. And so he got to Nashville, which I think was in 2012, kept doing that, but in a new genre of music or a new style of music. And Sturgill was sort of the tip of that spear for what our office has become in a lot of ways. And look at some of these acts now between Sturgill and Casey and the Lumineers and Tyler, I think, is next, so.
And now Kenny Chesney.
It's
great that you guys can sign young new club bands.
Yeah, like Kenny Chesney, right. Yeah, just casually selling out baseball stadiums. And so, I feel lucky to have landed in that office because I think ethos-wise, it's a great fit for me and certainly for my roster. All these bands that want to work all the time, that want to build on the road.
Well, it's got to be an interesting thing for you, too, because if we go back to early days, you started in Austin, and you were at a very small agency, Nancy Fly Agency.
Yeah, R.I.P. Nancy has since retired.
Just the agency, R.I.P.
The agency, yeah, sorry. Not to confuse anybody. No, Nancy's doing great.
Tastemaker Agency, though, her roster was always great. I always loved getting emails because I didn't necessarily book the act, but I always listened to it. It was and it usually would be on in the office for weeks.
Yeah, I mean, she, was a bit of a stepping stone for a lot of acts coming out of Austin or Texas. And she worked so hard for these acts, and a lot of these acts, that's kind of how their career started. So Band of Heathens, I think, was there for a little bit, and Ruthie Foster and, Bruce Robison. So, those were some of the first acts I ever booked.
So you get this roots start at a very small agency, then you move to a mid-level agency at New Frontier, come to Nashville, pick up some more assets, pick up some more resources, a little bit more worldliness as Paul had done Garth Brooks and what have you in his Buddy Lee days. And
Dixie
had the
Chicks,
events.
yeah, right.
Ability to work with these monster acts, right, and understand that stuff. So more resources, and then Paradigm elevated you to the point where you had Marty Diamond and JL to be resources, and Chip and Dan and Fred. What an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, working for Paul was so much fun and an incredible opportunity for me. And the best thing about Paul was I got there day one, he hired me to be an agent and book a small territory. Part of the deal was we would book the roster in our territories, and he would focus on everything AVITS, because this was end of 2010, beginning in 2011, and AVITS were going sort of stratosphere level at that point. And so we were happy to do it. And it was this incredible learning experience. And I got there and he was like, here's the phone, here's the computer, here's the FileMaker database. Go figure it out, which is the best thing that could have happened to me. We were free to sign. We were free to develop, and we were free to fail. We were certainly given enough rope. And it was this incredible sort of graduate school experience for me of learning how to be an agent, but also honing my own skills, figuring out what I was good at. So I signed Shakey there. I mean, he was the fifth or sixth act I ever signed. And I signed Cody Chestnut, and I signed Willie Watson, who I still work with. I signed the Band of Heathens, who are still over there. And it was just so much fun. We were kind of just this ragtag crew of kids trying to learn how to do this job. And so, so I had Paul to learn from for 4 years. And the great thing about getting to Paradigm was okay, now I have that times 200, and you have Dan and Fred and Chip, who was still alive when I got there, or JL or Marty or Jackie, or, and then the whole Windish team comes into the fold. And, so you're just learning every day from all these incredible agents, all of whom have great ears, all of whom have their own, their own roster, their own style of booking. And that's been a really fun thing about working in teams and working with other agents on certain acts is just kind of learning how people do things. Because you don't know until you
right,
do it
but
with
you
somebody.
can pick up the phone and call Trey Manning and be like, you got a couple minutes to break it down on some of your philosophies.
Right. And Trey always has time for you, which is great. And so we booked a lot of that Lord Huron Shakey tour together. And yeah, that was hugely exciting when Trey and Allie came over, because again, there's two agents with some of my favorite rosters that now work here that I can now dial their 4-digit extension on the IP phone and FaceTime with, essentially.
Normally, I would ask you what your goal is or some advice for kids, but you know what? Let's play some games.
Okay.
Let's get to know you a little bit better, because we skipped some history. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Probably Wayne's World, Dumb and Dumber, Tommy Boy, sort of that zone.
That Saturday Night Live 90s movie flicks.
And I'll add The Last Waltz in there.
Nice.
Just in terms of hours watched.
Okay, guilty pleasure?
I don't really believe in guilty pleasures. If it's a pleasure, you really shouldn't feel bad about it.
Look at that. Okay, favorite food?
Favorite food? Man, I love eating tacos in Austin, Texas.
Nice. Okay, favorite regular pleasure?
Favorite
Not to feel guilty about.
Regular pleasure. Certainly going to shows. I love skiing and being in the mountains.
What was your first concert?
My first concert was the Tibetan Freedom Festival.
Are you kidding?
Not kidding.
How did that happen?
At RFK Stadium.
Wow.
So it must have been, I was like in 7th grade, I
Your
think.
folks?
Yeah, my dad took me. Yeah.
How fucking cool is that?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was like, Beasties, Beck,
Your first
Pearl Jam.
show.
Yeah, it was incredible. Tribe Called Quest. My first 4 shows were Pearl Jam shows with my dad.
So your dad's cool as shit.
My dad goes to as many shows as I do.
So that's where your love for music came from?
Yeah. Well, it's really like more of a disease, right? It's like, and I do think it's partially hereditary, but it's like I have to go see music.
Dude, I want to hang out with your dad.
I don't blame you. I want to hang out with my dad too, whenever
cool
I
as
can.
shit.
So my dad was the guy in college who would go down to the box office when tickets were on sale on Saturday at like 10 in the morning. And he would lay out $3-4 grand and buy 1,000 tickets. The tickets were $3 or $4.
Right.
This is before the ticketing business scaled to what we know it as today, when you could walk down to the box office and buy 1,000 tickets at $3 or $4 a pop. So he would go do that for Stones at the Capitol Center. And then he would go back to campus with the hard tickets and sell them for $8 or $10 a piece.
Pay for his year.
Yeah, make some walking around money. So that's my dad. So like growing up, we were always going to shows. He always had tickets, whether the show was sold out or whatever. But yeah, a lot of shows with my parents.
I don't know. I certainly got my start
Yeah.
in going to shows with my dad. Like,
right. I love going to shows with my parents.
The Who was my first stadium show, and Kids Were All Right, and certainly it was my dad that took me. So
my dad and my sister, they came down to Bonnaroo a couple years ago, and we had like the Paradigm bus out there in the parking lot, and my dad passed out in the captain's seat, and Amy Corbin walks onto the bus. She's like, "Who's the old guy in the front?" I was like, "That's
my dad.
That's my dad. Just hanging out."
I can't thank you enough for taking time and talking to me today. This has been so much fun.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Keith's a pretty good guy, right? I told you he was. I bragged about him last episode. I'm telling you, he's a great guy. I think I rest my case after that interview. Keith Levy, good, solid dude.
Crack open a cold one with Steiny and the Pierce. Only on P101.
Hey, that'll do it. Episode 167 of Promoter 101 in the bag. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. And we have to say a big thanks to our guest today from Gray Matter Studios, Eric Elwell, and from Paradigm, Keith Levy. Thanks for coming on the podcast. If you like what you heard today, we want to hear about it. We want to hear your thoughts. Write them down. Put them in an email to steiny@promoter101.net. That'll hit Dan and I. Feel free to tell us what's on your mind.
We'll be back this Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. on the Eastern Seaboard.
Join us then. We're going to feature an interview from Montreux Jazz Festival's Michaela Meiners on the podcast. Looking forward to sitting down with her.
Until then, we're wishing you sold out shows for the weeks to come. Cheers!
Call your mother.
Hey, it's Rich Best with Live Nation Los Angeles, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba.